You may think of Honda as quite an electrified brand, but aside from its range of hybrids and plug-in hybrids, it's only ever produced one other mass production electric vehicle, and that was the Honda E, which was restricted by its limited range and, well, small size. It's this car, the Ny1, which aims to push Honda into the more widespread EV market, but with a host of key rivals going up against it, this car has got to do really well to come out on top. So in today's video, we're going to drive it, we're going to see what it's like inside to see whether or not you should be choosing this as your next electric SUV. So let's find out what it's got in store. I actually quite like the look of the Honda Ny1. The variety of gloss black elements on this car contrasts the white exterior paint to create a vehicle which does look quite futuristic. I think it looks quite a lot like a stormtrooper moving down the road. Some other elements that I like are the slim headlights, the integrated hidden rear door handles, and the Honda badge at the front, which pops open to reveal the charging port. Honda is known for making interiors that are very user-friendly but nicely built, and built within a budget, I would say. Now, is this the case for the Ny1? Well, it's a bit of a mixture, really. This is a car that is quite expensive. This particular version costs well over £42,000. And that comes through in some of the materials. So we've got some nicer finishes up top here, and obviously we've got this massive central touchscreen which is divided into three different elements. So you've got the heating, ventilation, you've got your media, and then you've got your navigation aspects up top. Personally, I think it's just way too feature packed for one area. And I know that manufacturers are using this in order to save money because one screen is cheaper than loads of different buttons. But in doing so, it makes it far less user-friendly than even just having a selection of buttons at the bottom. If you want to go through and find your phone or find how to change the air conditioning, it's just too much time spent looking away from the road. And I think that's both a safety issue and just makes it far less easy to use. However, elsewhere I do like some of the functions. I like the fact that it's got nice chunky buttons for the gear selectors, for the driving modes and for the parking brake, and I like that the multifunction steering wheel has proper buttons on it, particularly the one for the heated steering wheel, because that's a great touch when it is cold. Some of the material functions and the features aren't as nice as I'd expect for a car of this price though, and even though you do get wireless charging down the bottom, you don't get some of the features that the upmarket touches that I'd expect of a car at this price point. It all just feels a bit tinny and a bit rattly and not as nice as you'd want it to be. The tech is in here, but I feel like this huge screen is almost made to distract you from other features that they might not want you to look at. The rear of the Ny1 isn't too bad in terms of space, but it feels a little bit shut in because of these very low roofline sections, so it all feels quite hunkered down around you. You have got two USB-C charging ports in the middle, and because of the electric powertrain, because this has been designed as an electric car, you've got a nice flat section in the middle, so sitting three abreast isn't going to feel too tight. I'd say these outward seats are nice and wide too. And there is a bit of a solution to that darkness problem in here as well, because if you undo these clips, you reveal a full glass roof. I'm not entirely sure where you're meant to put that now, but it's a nice option to have all the same. And it does mean that on those hotter days, you can shut it away and try and keep the car a little bit cooler. When it comes to boot space, the Ny1 offers up 361 litres of space. And as you can see, it's nice and square and easy to access. And I like this rubber cover in this car, which is going to make it all a little bit more hard-wearing than it would be otherwise with the standard carpet section. There's a little bit of space underneath too for the charging cables, but bear in mind that even at 361 litres, this is still 100 litres less than you'll get from the Hyundai Kona electric. So if you're wanting an outright more practical option, then I'd step in that direction. This is good, but it's just not overall that impressive in terms of capacity. So, what is life like behind the wheel of the Honda Ny1? It's a mixture of reasonably good and quite bad. Honda has always had a great ability to make its more ordinary cars drive really nicely. Get into a standard Civic and you'll be met by a driving experience which is quite sporty but usable on a day-to-day basis. Now the Ny1 doesn't bring the same kind of attributes. It doesn't feel all that well tied down, and it manages to both be soft and floppy while also quite firm and crashy at low speeds. We've got a 201 brake horsepower electric motor, and that results in a 0 to 60 mile an hour time of 7.4 seconds. So I'd say That's about right for a car of this size and shape. It doesn't feel particularly fast, and I must admit, we've gotten quite used to electric cars feeling very fast away from the line. This one doesn't. It feels far more ordinary, and that's not a bad thing. But when you're driving it in a more spirited fashion, the Ny1 isn't the kind of car to reward you for doing so. I found that the ride can be quite crashy, and yet when you pick up a bit of speed, the whole car feels just quite wibbly wobbly, and I'm not getting much or any feedback through the steering. So I'm just not entirely sure of what's going on underneath the car. It's quite disconcerting, really. And whereas the Honda E, despite its many flaws, was actually really good to drive, this car just doesn't feel like it's been, well, designed by anyone who really likes driving, to be honest, and it makes the whole thing feel more appliance-like than anything at all. Now, Honda claims a range of up to 256 miles, so in fairness, it does have more than enough in the tank to keep things going on a daily basis. But frustratingly, the maximum charging rate for the Ny1 is 78 kilowatts, so that's the maximum you're going to get whenever you plug into a charger, regardless of how quick it is. So plug into 150 kilowatt, you're going to get that charge rate. Plug into 350 kilowatt, you're going to get that charge rate. That makes things quite slow, though if you're able to home charge, then you don't have to worry about that quite so much. I've also got some handy paddles behind the steering wheel which control the amount of regenerative braking that I'm getting. Pull left on the lever and you'll feel more regen coming through. The car will start to slow it down, and go on right and it'll reduce the amount of regen, and that's ideal for when you're travelling on the motorway. In terms of refinement, it's actually quite loud in here, and one thing that I've really noticed with this car, and it's something that I haven't noticed too much with other EVs, is the motor noise. There's this very high-pitched, whistle coming from the motor, particularly noticeable under hard acceleration and deceleration. You might be able to pick it up. But it's a bit like, in the summertime when you've got a mosquito stuck in your room and you can hear it's there. You're not quite sure where it is, but it stops you from getting to sleep. That's the only way I can describe it. It sounds like, like a little buzzy mosquito that you really don't want to have in the background. It kind of disrupts the whole thing, really. I've also noticed it makes quite a weird motor noise when you're on full lock or quite a lot of steering at slower speeds. So when you're meandering around a car park, it makes this strange kind of... It's like you've got Peter Griffin stuck under there. I don't know, it's very, very odd anyway. I will say though that the seating position is quite pleasant and the visibility out of the front is good. The pillars are quite slim and we've got some nice big wing mirrors too. Rearward visibility is also quite good, and because the car is quite compact overall, then it's easy to park and easy to live with around town. I just think that because the number of rivals have become so numerous in this segment, the Ny1 needed to step up its game in order to, make a name for itself. And I just don't think it has done that. Against cars like a Hyundai Kona Electric, this car feels, a little bit old-fashioned despite the massive screen and huge display in front of me. Sure, if you want a car that's just for ambling around town, then actually I think the Ny1, funny name aside, could work quite well. And let's be honest, EVs do make a lot of sense around town. I just think it's that low-speed fidgetiness and the high-speed sloppiness that combine to make a car that just doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like it wants you to enjoy driving it too much. It's a bit of a shame, really, because the other attributes are quite pleasant. I like being in here, and it's nice and airy with the big panoramic sunroof up top and the large screens and the plentiful glass. But when you get down to the base elements of it, it feels like it just hasn't been quite well thought out. It feels as though the Ny1 was something of a missed opportunity for Honda. Here was a car that could have brought a whole new segment to this brand, delivering the same kind of cutesy features that we expected from the Honda E, but with more practicality and better levels of in-car tech, although the Honda E was pretty game-changing in that regard. But because of this car's small boot, not all that impressive driving characteristics, and limited charging speed, I feel that it doesn't do quite as well as some of the other rivals in this segment. Had this car come out a couple of years ago, I think it would have done really well, but the compact EV market has grown to fruition so quickly that the Ny1 feels a little bit dated, even though it has only just come out. Sure, it's got a big screen and, a reasonable amount of range, but in this segment I feel that there are others which do it just all a little bit better. and that's why the Ny1 remains a hard car to recommend unless you're wanting a smaller SUV that can deal with everyday trips around town. Thank you for watching this Motors new car review on the Honda Ny1. Now, what do you think of this little electric SUV? Would you opt for it, or do you think you'd go for something else like the Hyundai Kona Electric? Let us know in the comments section below. Plus, if you're able to subscribe to the Motors YouTube channel, and if you hit that bell icon, you'll get a notification each time we upload a new video directly to your inbox.